Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to TBR's webcast, The Maturing Cloud Professional Services Market and Vendor Opportunity, recapping performance as reported in our Cloud Professional Services Benchmark and Customer Research Track. My name is Allison Crawford, and I will be your host for today's webinar. The influx of cloud solutions from an increasing number of vendors creates complex cloud environments in the IT atmosphere. The hybridization and orchestration of cloud are driving the continued adoption of cloud professional services as customers struggle with integrating and managing applications, workloads, cloud stacks, and other facets of the shift to cloud. Despite the significant growth of the cloud market over the past 5 years and global adoption of cloud, customers continue to rely on consultants and systems integrators to educate, plan, design, build, and implement their cloud environments to promote improved business outcomes. Vendors face challenges from country-specific privacy laws, vertical-specific nuances, and traditionalists averse to change. Over the course of this webinar, Principal Analyst Ramona Svarkis and Analyst Cassandra Mushian will walk you through what is causing this market shift, followed by Q&A of these trends and how they will affect you. Before they pass it over to Ramona, there are a few logistics I'd like to cover. First, we're recording today's session and posting it on our YouTube site, TBRI channel. We encourage you to visit this channel to watch this presentation or any of the others that we posted. Second, we'd like to hear your opinions and thoughts on the materials we're presenting. Please send any questions or comments to the Q&A or chat function. Ramona will address them at the end of the presentation. Or for more private inquiries, please reach out directly to any one of us. Hi, folks. I just want to make sure that everyone can hear me okay. It doesn't look like I'm getting audio.
Okay, Allison, why don't we continue? It looks like we're getting some responses as far as hearing you.
Okay, I guess you missed the introduction. So basically, folks, I just did the whole intro, welcoming you to the presentation, telling you what we're going to talk about. So rather than recap all this and waste any more time, I'm going to introduce Ramona and Cassandra. You should know who your presentation speakers are. So Ramona is one of our senior analysts in the TBR Professional Services practice area. In addition to focusing on several of the largest IT services vendors, he also spearheads our global delivery market landscape benchmark and is the lead professional services analyst in our cloud program. He was instrumental in kicking off our cloud-related research with our first customer research study on the use of cloud professional services back in 2010. The fourth edition is going to be published a little while ago. Ramona is our lead professional spokesperson on cloud, providing both the analytics and strategic advice, helping IT services firms identify new opportunities and revenue streams. And Cassandra is one of the core cloud research team, covering vendors like HP, Dell, IBM, and Fujitsu, and has been instrumental in our cloud research. With that, let me send it over to Ramona.
Thank you, Allison. So today we're going to talk about cloud professional services and specifically what's happening in the marketplace based on our recent benchmark and the cloud research we've conducted. For those of you that aren't familiar with our cloud program, I've included a couple of slides here at the beginning of the presentation. These slides will be made available to everyone at the end of the presentation. We'll be mailing them out tomorrow. And it will also be on our website. So I'm just going to cover these first introductory slides just about our cloud program very briefly without getting into the details. Our cloud program consists of cloud vendor reports, cloud benchmarks, and cloud customer research tracks, where we actually investigate and survey enterprise clients to find out what their thoughts, opinions about cloud and cloud professional services and private and hybrid cloud are. Just so I get a sense from the end users whether or not vendors are actually performing up to snuff. The program itself today, we're going to be focusing in on two areas, the managed private and professional services cloud benchmark, and really we're going to even narrow that down to primarily looking at the professional services side of the equation. and then our Cloud Customer Professional Services Customer Report, where we've actually looked at and talked to some of the vendors, some of the customers in the cloud market to see what's happening. So why do we do it the way we do it here from our standpoint? We believe that all this research really does fit together. Understanding what vendors are doing specifically, and we examine those in quite a lot of detail in our vendor reports, then leads us to really benchmarking the vendors, comparing and contrasting who's doing what, where, when, and how, who's the leader, who's the laggard. And then we really tie in what the customers are saying in terms of how these vendors are addressing the needs of the customers. So that's how our program fits together. In terms of actual definitions we use within the discussion today, what we look at is cloud professional services is cloud consulting, systems integration, applications development and maintenance, and operations management and maintenance services. And then we also, as part of our benchmark, look at also the managed component of this, which is really where we really sort of aligns with the overall large outsourcing market in terms of this is where firms manage and provide the actual services that drive the cloud market. And here we break that actual market into dynamic apps, which is really software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, and business process as a service. For today, we're really going to focus on cloud professional services and what's happening that, but I will be mentioning a few things around managed services as well. Specifically, we're going to cover what's in the state of the cloud professional services market, what's driving professional services purchasing, who are the winners and losers effectively, and what are the customers' preferences in terms of what do they really want from the vendors as we're heading into the next wave of cloud adoption. The cloud market, and specifically the cloud professional services market, continues to mature to a certain extent. Many of the people that have been the leaders in the marketplace, the early adopters, have adopted cloud in one way, shape, or form or another, and have started on the process. The clients that we actually interview in our custom research study are really the enterprise clients, the largest clients, and we've specifically selected that group of people because they are the early leaders and they really tell us what the future waves are going to occur, especially as we move down into the mid-market space and the SMB space. Cloud. It's growing, and it continues to grow. And cloud professional services is still very strong, growing at excess of 30%. And we expect this to continue, but we are seeing a little bit of erosion in the growth. When we look at actually the players in the marketplace, it's really been changing over time. When we started doing our work in the cloud market, especially from a professional services perspective, back in 2010, the people that we saw that really were getting some traction were the traditional IT services tech companies. People understood, that these IT services vendors knew their infrastructure. Cloud was a new way of delivering infrastructure, and they were tapping into those people for help from a professional services side of the equation. As the market has progressed in 2011, we saw many of the traditional SIs actually getting a little bit of traction, in part because people were saying, okay, cloud's here, what's the best solution? Maybe I should be talking to an SI that can give me a vendor-agnostic approach to cloud. So these vendors started to see and surface from a professional services standpoint. As we progressed across this pendulum here over the previous 2 years, we saw really a number of the software vendors, the ISVs, actually playing a bigger and bigger role in the professional services side of the equation for cloud. Clients were recognizing that we are basically delivering workloads, which are applications, through a cloud environment, and who best to talk to and figure out whether this is going to work, be it the applications vendors themselves. So they're actually being engaged and are providing additional professional services and are really appearing quite highly in our studies from a customer standpoint as people that are being talked to and engaged as they move into a cloud environment and delivery mechanism. As we enter this year and you know, at the tail end of 2013, we were seeing a number of other vendors also starting to play a role in the cloud professional services space. The Indian-based vendors who have historically been primarily outsourcers are trying to get into the market. They're trying to figure out how to monetize and make money in the business, as is everyone else. And it is a struggle because we've seen cannibalization from a services perspective. So certainly that has been a challenge for many vendors in terms of, you know, they have to figure out how are they going to make money in the cloud market. And as we head into the future, we really believe that the cloud market is going to, you know, really kind of swing back to the traditional strong tech companies and IT services firms and professional services firms that have had a historical large presence in the marketplace. Part of this is because of the complexity of cloud, the number of skills you need, necessitates that a company provide a full compendium of services that includes, you know, design, build, implement, run, and update, and so forth. And not all firms can execute on all of those portions at the same level of quality. So the larger the firm and the firms that can do a good job of that are going to be the ones and the winners in the future. Again, the cloud revenue streams are a little bit smaller typically than the traditional hosted or purchased streams where you're actually rebuilding a whole data center and you have to buy all the infrastructure. Now you can rent it on a subscription basis, don't have to pay as much. The OpEx model taking over from the CapEx model. This means revenue streams are contracting, especially for many of the larger vendors that have been involved in IT infrastructure. But at the same token, it does create an understanding by the vendors that they have to reach out. To replace those revenues, they have to move down the food chain. Not just enterprise clients, but mid-market clients and SMB clients have become very important. And they can consume cloud resources just as well as the enterprise clients can. So they are really focusing on those markets as we move forwards. So where is the market and where is it going? This chart here really depicts our overall managed private and professional services cloud market sizing endeavor. And we do this for the benchmark every time we publish it and then update it. And we look at it really, first of all, two pieces of the puzzle, the managed private cloud services and then the professional services. As you can see, they're both going hand in hand. Managed private is a little bit larger, not much, but it is a little bit larger than the professional services side of the equation. And what is interesting, and this is what we're seeing both, you know, examining vendors' revenue streams as well as what customers are doing, that the compound annual growth rate is slowly eroding a little bit, you know, over the years. With, you know, spectacular compound annual growth rates of in excess of 60% starting in 2010. Now it's down to the 39–40% range. Into the next couple of years, it's going to be slowing down into the 20% range, and then obviously tapping out, probably believe, by 2018 at the 10% range in terms of annual growth. When we look at it in more detail, specifically breaking the the professional services components away from the managed services component here, we see that, you know, applications development and maintenance is the smallest sub-segment. Consulting is the next largest, I would say. But yeah, as systems integration really is generating more revenue. And consulting and systems integration really go somewhat hand in hand. Clients that, you know, engage in a professional services firm consulting typically have that professional services firm do the implementation and building out a cloud infrastructure. So it does move hand in hand. We see in terms of actual growth, consulting leading here, you know, not excluding managed services, which are the actual cloud pieces that are actually getting into the puzzle. And, you know, it is a leader, and it's basically driving the market because people need that consulting expertise and help to really understand how cloud's going to work for them and what's going to happen in the future in terms of their infrastructure. When we look at it from just the professional services standpoint, some of the things that we think are impacting and slowing the growth a little bit, certainly the number one issue that's appearing is security. The second is that you are shifting from a CapEx to an OpEx operating model. That leads to a very difficult understanding of your return on investment. And then many clients are finding that it's not quite possibly the same savings that we expected. And then finally, basically we're seeing a change and shift in buying dynamics. Business buyers are also involved in the cloud decision process as well as IT buyers. And there are challenges from that standpoint. Case in point, we heard of a situation where a company called up one of the vendors and said, hey, we're going to buy all this public cloud services. This is really cheap. It's really going to work for us. It's the applications that we want. We want to go out there and get them. Can you match this price? And the systems integrator said, well, no, we can't match that public cloud price, but we can provide it in a private cloud environment. Those people went and then a week later called back and said, our IT department came back and said we can't buy it because it doesn't meet our security and governance risks. There you go. You have a conflict. The business buyers definitely want a solution, but they don't understand all the intricacies of IT. IT understands the challenges and risks potentially and is trying to provide a cost-effective solution. The two really challenges here are that effectively the professional services firm needs to make the sale both on the business side, the line of business side, as well as the IT side. That creates some challenges if you don't have the capabilities to talk to the senior management that's running the actual businesses. But it's also, in effect, creating an opportunity for a number of vendors. We're seeing that the upward momentum for cloud is a cost savings. There are efficiencies that can be delivered. You don't have to purchase a whole data center and have a lot of excess capacity to meet your peaking demand needs. You can buy that on a subscription basis and meet those needs. At the same time, the environment is becoming complex and more complex. There are more and more solutions being offered by various vendors across the board, both the software, hardware side, and from a services side. And people are turning and continuing to turn to professional services firms for consulting to help them understand how this whole process works, what's the best solution for us, and where are we heading for in the future. So what's the net impact of all this? So for cloud professional services, for the first quarter of 2014, we really saw that the traditional consulting firms and implementation firms have really dominated the cloud professional services market. This chart, the size of these spheres for the various firms identified on it, identifies their quarterly cloud professional services revenue. The left-hand side really provides the dollar change in terms of growth year over year, whereas the bottom axis is really the percentage change growth. And as you can see, there are some people that are growing pretty dramatically from a cloud professional services standpoint, up in excess of 50%. But these are the smaller players, the players that have not traditionally been dominant in the professional services space. In the IT arena, they're trying to make headway and make gains. They're recognizing that consulting and systems integration are key components of this. They're preludes to potentially selling additional cloud services and managed services. So they are trying to make inroads. But yet the leaders are the traditional players that have been playing in the market for quite a while. So having looked at an overview of the marketplace, what's driving all this? What is inherently happening in the cloud marketplace? We're going to kind of couple a little bit of our customer research items here to understand what we see is happening and what has been happening over time. When we examine cloud purchasers, we find that it is very interesting that in terms of incidence rate, in terms of actually purchasing professional services, over 80% of enterprise firms have engaged a professional services firm for cloud. And this trend has been escalating. It's been bouncing around a little bit, but it is very telling because those same firms, when you talk about, have you purchased private cloud or have you purchased public cloud, or if you purchased and engaged and working on a hybrid cloud delivery mechanism, their incidence rate in terms of actual purchases is almost half of this. This suggests that, especially for the managed private, cloud portion of the market, there's a lot of growth left. And for professional services, we expect this to continue from an incidence rate. And again, the revenue numbers don't necessarily reflect these figures, but it certainly tells you that people are engaging in professional services to drive cloud. This next slide actually looks at it over time, and it breaks it down into the specific professional services that we examine. And as you can see, consulting has been from the very beginning very important and being purchased very much by enterprise clients. And it has led to people then integrating and building out cloud infrastructures in the private cloud space, applications development maintenance. Certainly people are looking at applications and recognizing that, in fact, workloads are being moved via the cloud environment, and or is there still a need for customization or not, so there's certainly that being examined. In some cases, actually workloads are being migrated to the cloud environment. And then management of the cloud space. And again, all this has been led by advisory services. So if you look at our next slide, as we dig into the sub-details of the professional services market, this chart very much mimics the earlier chart I showed for total cloud professional services. The big players are the big players that have been there for a while, and they're really continuing to succeed and make the most amount of revenue growth from the cloud market. Again, the market is still at its infancy. It's small relative to the overall IT services market, but it is gaining traction and momentum, and in some cases at the expense of some cannibalization that's occurring from other services that the professional services firms have offered. To take you through the rest of the lines of business for professional services, I'm going to turn over the microphone to Cassandra.
Great. Thanks, Raminis. So Raminis just talked about the consulting side of things. Now we're going to take a look into the systems integration side. So when we look at the SI space, it kind of makes sense that the global tenured SIs stand out, the Accentures, HP, IBM, Fujitsu. But what's really interesting here is if you look at Capgemini and Deloitte, Capgemini, Deloitte, and Dell lead in terms of percentage growth, and while Capgemini is significantly larger in the systems integration space than it is in the consulting space, which means to me that that company is sticking true to its core, sticking to where it came into the cloud space from as a systems integrator. And the same goes for Deloitte. Deloitte's a big consulting firm. Makes sense that its consulting revenue is a lot bigger than its systems integration revenue. That said, though, with Deloitte's high growth in the SI space, shows that Deloitte's really trying to grab a bigger foothold in the space. And both companies, Capgemini and Deloitte, they recently just made acquisitions to enforce their growth in the segment. Capgemini purchased Euroware, and Deloitte purchased ATD Legal Services. And then when we move to the ADM space, the layout and leaders appear much different than consulting and systems integration. HP and Fujitsu have pulled far ahead of their peers in EDM, with HP off the chart, and Fujitsu more than double the size in terms of revenue than the other vendors included. Since cloud is so complex, customers sometimes want simpler solutions, not necessarily so much customization, and they want something that's prepackaged and pre-built that are kind of ready to go at a moment's notice, which is another area where HP and Fujitsu are both strong in, which also is contributing to their success in this space. Each of the companies, too, have strong geographic pulls, HP in the US and Fujitsu in Asia Pacific. That said, though, IBM has a strong presence in the US and globally, but if you look down in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see IBM's arrow pointing to the bubble near Microsoft, Atos, and Dell. Despite its strong capabilities in its software group, especially with all of the software acquisitions that it's made recently, like Silverpop, Aspera, Cloudant, IBM is more focused on the software itself than customizing and managing it. It's relying quite a bit on its systems integrator partners to provide those services. Another highlight during the quarter in ADM was the partnership between CSC and HCL. Two SIs that came into the same market but from different sides, they have the opportunity to somewhat meet in the middle and disrupt the vendor standings as they currently are now. Like Ramonis mentioned, ADM is overall a small portion of the cloud professional services space, but it's going to become more and more important as software and services are more often the differentiators between the vendors as some of the infrastructure has become more standardized. So we talked a little bit about the vendors in terms of segment leaders, but now we're going to dive into the overall cloud professional services to take a look at the leaders and their strategies, as well as the differentiators that are most important to the customers. From our study, security expertise is the top differentiating factor among vendors and customers' purchasing decisions. It's interesting, though, because while security is a top barrier to cloud adoption, it's also the #1 reason to hire a third party. We'll talk about the findings around that in a couple of slides. But for now, we'll take a look at the overall leaders. As you saw earlier, the big systems integrators are the revenue leaders. They're the vendors that are typically the early movers in big technology shifts, and they have the resources and expertise to build out their portfolios pretty quickly. The growth leaders, though, are the late movers that are just starting to really make some waves in the cloud professional services space. They have smaller revenues, but they're really growing quick as they build out their portfolios. We've seen that most vendors in the space are focusing on 3 key areas: open source, security, and interoperability. IBM and HP each are building out their public cloud capabilities to complement their private cloud portfolios with IBM the SoftLayer and HP with its new Helion portfolio. And all of the vendors seem to be really focusing on multi-tenancy and their security solutions. The growth leaders, however, not only are they acquiring to get into the cloud space quicker, but they're also really utilizing their partners to expand their addressable markets. Just in 1Q14 alone, we saw over 40 new or revamped partnerships just between the systems integrators and the ISVs that we cover. The big focus companies for the SIs to partner with were Microsoft, SAP, and Amazon Web Services. We've seen that more often now the SIs are focusing on their core areas of cloud expertise, and then they're utilizing partners to supplement in other areas of cloud. Partnerships offer a much cheaper way than acquisitions to really quickly build out capabilities. But this also comes with inherent challenges. I'm sure you all have heard of the term co-opetition more than a few times lately, and it really is becoming an issue for vendors to overcome. So companies that have historically competed head-to-head in all areas of the market are now realizing that it could be mutually beneficial for them to work together in certain areas. However, this poses a challenge for not only the vendors to deal with. A certain example of this was the little hiccup between VMware and Cisco in the SDN space. But it also drives a challenge for the customers, because the customers have this confusion of who do I deal with.
At the same token, I wanted to also add that I think that while that challenge of confusion is definitely there are more opportunities for the customer in terms of selection.
Right.
Co-opetition certainly, creates a situation where hopefully you're getting the best solution possible and the best outcome from that solution. Yet there is a competition from the vendor side of who's going to own that relationship and run with it.
Mm-hmm. So to kind of combat this, the vendors are trying to differentiate, and they're really going all in on differentiating the security. So these two charts included on this slide are from our most recent Cloud Professional Services study. The one on the left shows the top concerns or barriers to cloud adoption, and then how the customers plan on mitigating those concerns. As you can see, security pulls pretty far ahead of all the other concerns. What's interesting, though, is that security has the highest percentage of respondents that plan to hire a third party to help mitigate their concern, but they also have the highest percentage of those who plan to handle the risk themselves by either building the capabilities internally or utilizing automation tools. Even if they're looking to build this, to combat this internally, they'll still need a third-party provider up front, either to help build the skills and advise on what needs to be done, or provide the automation solutions. The graph on the right shows the considerations purchasers make when choosing one vendor over another. Since security is such a concern, it makes sense that knowledge of cloud-related security issues tops the list as the most critical attribute. Vendors have definitely recognized this trend and the importance customers place on security, which has led to a plethora of security-focused portfolio build-outs over the past 6 months. Some examples include new offerings from T-Systems, Fujitsu, Dell, and VMware. Many of the solutions that are being rolled out now target security risks and concerns regarding mobility specifically, and the access to the company data from mobile devices, and along those lines with user identification and verification challenges. While every business requires security of their important data, certain industries are more security-minded than others and require a certain baseline, especially with the public sector with its FedRAMP certification. That said, requiring minimums is also somewhat limits the number of vendors to choose from, positioning the certified vendors ahead of their peers in these cases. IBM recently supplemented its FedRAMP certification with the build-out of well, it just opened one and is planning to open another U.S.-based federal data center that helps promote public sector adoption of cloud, since adoption in the sector has been very slow to date. Adding the industry flavor, especially in very regulated industries like the public sector, others are financial services and healthcare. This will really help vendors set themselves apart from the rest. And speaking of setting apart from the rest, we think there are best practices and strategies for vendors depending on where they've originated from. The SIs with hardware portfolios like HP, IBM are best off focusing on providing the whole cloud stack and utilizing the partnerships to differentiate on the software layers and really focus on providing the orchestration and management solutions. Customers want vendors that have strong working knowledge of their legacy IT infrastructures as well as cloud infrastructures. So that's where HP and IBM and other vendors in that category can really come out on top and say, hey, we understand your prior environment, we understand that you want some cloud solutions included, let us integrate and manage that for you. The SIs, the more traditional SIs without their own hardware portfolios, you know, Capgemini, the Indian players, they need to promote vendor agnosticism and focus on their partnerships with a really broad range of vendors so that they have solutions readily available that customers want and that fit their needs. In terms of the consultants, like Deloitte and Accenture, they can really utilize their proven case studies and thought leadership pieces and accompanying studies that they have done to show customers the tangible business outcomes from companies in their industries, in their regions, or even in an adjacent market. And then for the ISVs, you know, SAP, Oracle, Microsoft, now's the time to shine for them. With security being so crucially important to customers and a key deciding factor between vendors, the vendors with the legacy software expertise and established customer bases and big developer networks are best set up for success in this space. So now that we've given our recommendations, to wrap up, cloud professional services is still small in the grand scheme of the IT landscape, but it's definitely showing signs of maturity. The influx of vendors and solutions in the cloud space is creating a really complex environment that's really difficult for some customers to navigate, especially the smaller customers that just don't have the IT staff in place. And there could also be almost too many choices in some cases, and it becomes too overwhelming. So having a consultant there by your side will really help businesses go a long way in the cloud space. I think the role of an IT services provider is only going to become more and more crucial as cloud progresses. New waves like big data and analytics and SDN just further complicate matters, and customers are going to seek a third party to help them, you know, build out their roadmaps and implement and manage the services ongoing. So with that, we'd like to open it up to any questions.
Okay, great. Thanks. For those of you who have sent your questions, we were able to answer them on the fly. Excuse me, we do have a couple more in queue, and for those that have already asked to get the slides, we will put those up tomorrow. The first question we have in queue, guys, is nearly every cloud professional services provider in the slides also has a cloud platform of their own. Can you comment about their risk of being on-ramps for their own cloud platforms versus cloud platform neutral pro services in terms of percentages?
Well, I don't know if we can actually provide a number from the percentages standpoint at this stage of the game. You're right. Everybody has their own cloud platforms. The nature of the beast in terms of, you know, people trying to monetize cloud and recognize that services are, you know, a key element of it. You know, cloud services specifically, you know, infrastructure, platform as a service, software as a service, and so forth, are the key components. That's where the managed services revenues are being generated right now. And then, of course, you have the whole public cloud landscape where people have been buying cloud services from that side of the equation. And of course, there are only a handful of public cloud vendors. That's where the long-term money is going to be resident, because people are going to, rather than buying the infrastructure, they're going to be renting it. So if you have platforms built in place that steer you towards your specific services and your specific environments, that's the route that the vendors want to go. At the same token, however, I think customers are really focusing in on standardization and trying to make things simple, which means that there's a huge push towards the open environment, the open stack, so that in spite of the platform you may be running on, everything works efficiently and is integrated and can work irrespective of the platform you're working on. This is kind of in direct conflict with what the vendors would like to see happen, but I think the market itself and customers are going to continue to drive into that space and continue to require that open environment so that they can, in fact, switch from one cloud vendor and one cloud professional services vendor, for that matter, to another one, or leverage a cloud professional services vendor to, say, run their cloud, but actually the cloud services they're purchasing may be moving to another vendor. So hopefully I answered the question for them, and so we can actually get into it maybe a little bit later or at a later date and time.
Okay. Next question we have, for ISVs, how motivated are they to put their R&D HG to go after professional services versus selling software? What is the margin difference for them?
Well, I don't know what officially the margin difference is. Certainly selling, your own software as a developed product is the preferred route. The ideal old model of selling it as a license and then having the maintenance revenues associated with it is the most profitable. Selling it on a subscription basis certainly doesn't maximize your incoming revenues, but you get somebody on the model, and it's a prolonged, usually subscription basis. So you've created an annuity stream from the software standpoint. Once the software is developed, I mean, the R&D portion of that is really the sunk cost, and profitability after that is almost 100%, because you're just reusing that same asset over and over and over again.
Okay. The next question we have in queue. What are the most, this might actually have to be a follow-up question, I'm not sure how you want to handle this for a minute. What are the most traditional hardware vendors doing to evolve and adjust in light of the need for cloud consulting?
I think one of the big issues is that we didn't talk a lot about it, but companies are looking for outcomes, and specifically business outcomes, as they're starting to rechange, remodernize their IT infrastructure. Those business outcomes necessitate a discussion with line of business managers who are responsible for the business outcomes, not the IT department. So there's really been a shifting and moving up the consulting chain in terms of talking to line of business managers, people that understand businesses. The step is even more detailed in terms of not just being able to talk to the business leaders in companies, but really starting to build resources that can talk to these leaders on an industry vertical basis. Because the business challenges in each of the industry verticals are different. Healthcare challenges are completely different than retail challenges, that are completely different than manufacturing challenges. And if you're going to modernize your IT infrastructure, it must meet your business challenges first. And then on the backside, it should save you a few dollars in terms of how you're actually implementing your IT infrastructure. So it's really a question of what's happening from that standpoint. From a consulting standpoint, is that consultants have to become much more business savvy. Yes, you can know how all the bits and bytes move and how it all works, and when you're talking to an IT manager, that's great. But the business manager wants a simple solution, and he wants to understand how it's going to save him money and dollars.
Okay, for those of you who are sending new questions, if I don't respond back and I have your questions, we will get to them. The next question we have, Ramona, is how should customers distinguish between the value large ISVs provide in delivering and supporting cloud services versus using third parties for support, planning, and implementation?
That's an interesting question. I think there's room in the marketplace for both. Large ISVs typically, and if in terms of their support of their clients, typically support their largest clients. And as you move down the chain in terms of smaller engagements and leveraging regional or even city-specific engagements in terms of the actual geographies, many firms do turn to smaller, channel partners, consulting partners, implementation partners, and so forth, to do that same type of activity. One of the things I think we're seeing is that the large ISVs they're very focused on, making sure that their certification processes are easy. They're trying to transfer the knowledge to all their channel partners in terms of how to implement various cloud solutions and leverage the applications they provide in cloud solutions. And they're recognizing that they must play that backup role to those various channel partners and people that are implementing it at the actual client site. So it's a movement that really says, hey, we've got to provide not just consulting, but we also have to provide consulting platforms that some of our channel partners can also leverage.
Okay. The next question we have, for the higher growth SIs, e.g. Capgemini, are there specific verticals or customer segments that they're focused on?
I don't have that offhand in my notes right here right now. I mean, Capgemini is an interesting situation. Capgemini has historically been noted certainly as somewhat of a consulting firm, but they've really focused on the systems integration side of the equation and really been Europe-focused. Certainly in the financial services and banking sectors are the ones, several of the primary markets that they've been strong in. And I just, it's my feeling I really would need to bring in our Capgemini analyst expert to talk to that in more detail. But it certainly is an area where they are recognizing that they want to expand, and with cloud emerging, they are creating relationships with other vendors. They recognize security is a key issue, so they've actually are leveraging Unisys as security offering and trying to promote it in the European theater. So they are moving all the parts in the right direction. I don't know for the future which industry vertical is going to be their hot spot. I suspect that the traditional ones in terms of banking and finance are going to continue to be a strong area for them. But I just don't want to off the top of my head, I don't remember exactly which of the other ones are going to be the key markets.
I think that Capgemini is starting to really get into the retail space with its digital solutions. So that was kind of on my radar and my initial take on the question.
Okay. The next question we have, is there a differentiation in consulting between public and private cloud solutions consulting? What are the public cloud providers like Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, SoftLayer, and Google doing to offering cloud consulting?
Well, we know that Amazon specifically has started focusing and in a sense offering a little bit of consulting from their services for enterprise clients. It's at its infancy at this stage of the game. The traditional public cloud vendors that have been out there in the marketplace, their goal was really to provide these resources at a very low cost point to generate traffic to their sites and really succeed from that standpoint. They're really leveraging the infrastructure they have and found a way to sell it on the open market. We really see more as the traditional SIs recognizing that, you can get some of these services at rock bottom prices, but, there are certain caveats in terms of you're not guaranteed an SLA, the daily relationship, it doesn't have maybe necessarily all the security protocols that you would like, that are helping consult regarding these public cloud services and really trying to identify where, from a governance, risk, security standpoint for a given company, is it appropriate to go out to the public cloud place versus really working in a private cloud environment, or still behind your firewall in your own private data center. So we're seeing smidgens of movement in that direction from the public cloud players, but it hasn't gone very rapidly. We haven't seen a lot of rapid growth yet from a professional services and consulting standpoint.
Okay. The next question we're going to take is, can you clarify the revenue and growth dollars or numbers for the market with respect to its public sector dollars or private, as well as you can break up the global concentration, U.S. versus international, then by global region?
Those numbers, to a certain extent, are embedded in all our cloud program work. I don't have the numbers readily available, but when we do focus on, we have a public cloud benchmark as well as the private and professional services. I don't have those numbers in terms of percentages handy. Certainly, if you're a client of our cloud program, you can, those data points are actually in the Excel spreadsheets that are available and can be calculated out. We do not at this point really time yet break every one of the regions into all the specific subcategories of cloud yet. That's something that we're looking to start moving towards in the future, but that's not yet available. But like I said, much of that data, I just don't have the specific numbers in front of me, can be driven out from the various data points that we have and provide as part of our cloud program.
Okay, and just as the person who asked that question, we are doing a private cloud webinar tomorrow with Alan Crayons out of the software team, and we did public cloud. So we have those slides from Jillian Miranda, who's also in the cloud practice as well. So if you'd like, excuse me, please reach out to me to get access to that. So the next question we probably have time for 3 more questions if you answer quickly, really. Can you please elaborate a bit about what you mentioned during the presentation of IBM being small and ADM for being more focused on the software side, acquisitions, etc., and not on the services side? I'm not sure if I understood it very well. Thank you.
So what we were trying to get at with that was that on the graph, for minutes, if you don't mind scrolling back to that slide. On the graph, I'm sorry?
Do you know which slide it was?
I had it there in a second. I just lost it. I was paging too quickly.
Sorry.
Oh boy.
Allison, don't page.
Hold it up, good slide, kids.
There you
go. All right.
You guys are going to tell me the slide I'm running them. They can't see what you're looking at.
It's slide 21.
21.
Okay.
All right. So IBM's revenue size and absolute dollar revenue growth and percentage growth are all pretty small in comparison to Fujitsu and HP, who are the leaders in this space. Why we think that is because IBM is very focused on its software group, and most of the application work that IBM does, in our perception, is public cloud applications, private cloud applications, more of on the software side than necessarily customizing applications and maintaining them and managing them for clients.
So the biggest vendors, obviously, on that slide also are the Indian-based vendors who have a historical presence in the software and application space. And this is also starting to filter through onto the cloud side of the equation as well. So that's why, from that perspective, in terms of dollar revenues, the applications development and maintenance category from a cloud space for IBM is not as large. Again, these are estimates by us, but one of the underlying beliefs is that IBM definitely is very focused, and they've been always focused on the software stack and selling their software offerings. We are very well aware that many of the Indian-based vendors have, for a long time, provided the development work, customization of the IBM software stack for specific clients, and that really is transferring itself into the cloud space as well.
Okay, we have time for one more question. We've begun to see cloud professional services being more closely aligned with business services or digital services in some services organizations. Are the days of standalone cloud professional services ending?
I don't know if you could say it ended. Digital services or digital platforms or whatever is really a kind of a subset of the overall cloud environment. It certainly ties very closely to the retail side of the equation as well. But not to say it's exclusive. I mean, you have digital programs and in fact, trying to figure out how do you digitize and look at everything in a cloud environment. The cloud professional services, you have so many different aspects because digital only kind of addresses one portion of the equation. The rest is the various other business functions that have to be, are challenged in some of the industries that need to see some improvement, need modernization of the infrastructure and so forth. So that's continuing to go on, and I think from a professional services standpoint, there's places where each of the vendors has had historical success and strength. There's the firms that are very strong in helping firms, customers build out their CRM applications and their systems, whereas other firms are very strong in the enterprise resource planning side. Supply chain management is another area. Yes, is there some digital overlay into this? Yes, but you're still talking about the core business processes. HR, another key area where we're seeing a lot of traction in terms of, leveraging the cloud environment to deal with HR challenges. So they're all, so it's, one could say, yeah, everything is gone digital, and digital services is the new name for cloud professional services. My opinion, I wouldn't coax it that way at the present time.
Okay. We're out of time, and we have several more questions in queue. So for those of you who have sent us through questions that we did not address publicly, we will be sharing those with the analysts, and they'll be reaching out to you within the next 24 hours to connect you and getting you those answers. As you saw on the slide just previous to this, information about the webinars tomorrow, as one of the ones that I just mentioned on public clouds. We do encourage you to visit us for that webinar on private cloud as well. Here's all the social media information that I promised you guys at the beginning of the webinar, or I didn't, as you might not have been able to hear me. I do encourage everyone to follow Ramona, Cassandra, and TBR, as well as TBR Cloud on Twitter. I haven't put the handle here, but we do have a cloud-specific Twitter handle, like I said, is just TBR Cloud. So please do join us on the social media conversations there, as well as on SlideShare, YouTube, and LinkedIn. We will be sending out the slides to everyone who attended today's webinar, so we're looking forward to that, as well as the recording of this presentation on YouTube. You can watch it again or pass it along to other colleagues you think that would find value in listening to the presentation. I'm going to leave the chat function open in a couple of minutes in case anyone has any last-minute questions or would like to set up conversations with Cassandra and Ramona on this research track. And if not, we hope to see you join us tomorrow on private cloud. And if not, on our future cloud webinars, we are going to be sending out the schedule of all of our upcoming fall webinars probably at the end of next month, so keep an eye out for that. As you're leaving the webinar, we have a short survey. How valuable was the presentation, or how valuable was the content of the presentation? How good was the presenters, and if there's any other last-minute feedback. We do take your feedback very seriously, so if you have comments, please do send them through. And we will, modify our presentation quarter to quarter because we realize your time is valuable and want to make sure you're getting the most out of the hour that you spend with us. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on the next cloud webinar from QBR. Thanks, and have a great afternoon.